On today's episode of Modern Catch Up, where I review a film that I'm just now getting to, I'm reviewing Nickel Boys, which was directed by RaMell Ross. This movie is nominated for Best Picture, so I thought I should catch up on the two films I hadn't seen that were nominated. I'll get to the other ones soon enough. While everyone else on this platform seems to be talking about and backlashing against Emilio Perez, and yes, I have reviewed that film but plan to re-review it again soon, so stay tuned for that. I felt it was unfair to not give all of the nominated films their day in court, so I sat down and watched Nickel Boys yesterday, and it's pretty good. Nickel Boys is based on the novel The Nickel Boys by Colson Whitehead and is about Elwood, a highly educated, well-meaning young man who was raised during the Jim Crow era of the 1960s. Elwood has a very optimistic view of life and sees people like Dr. Martin Luther King as being beacons of change. He is being raised by his grandmother, who raises him with concern that if he participates in the growing civil rights movement, he will be met with backlash as her father was, who died while he was in prison. Elwood is offered and accepts a scholarship to a program called HBCU for accelerated learning. On his way to this school, a seemingly kind gentleman pulls over and offers Elwood a ride. Unfortunately, the car is pulled over shortly down the road, and it turned out that the car was stolen by the driver, and Elwood is named his accomplice. He is sentenced to a reform school called Nickel Academy, and we follow his segregation at this place and all the terrible things that transpire there. The thing that Nickel Boys uses for its hook is that the entire picture is shown through a first-person perspective. We are literally in the eyes of Elwood for almost the entire movie. He meets a guy named Turner about 40 minutes into the film, and the two strike a strong brotherly relationship, and the movie bounces between the two from the first-person perspective. Sometimes we see things through Elwood's eyes, sometimes we see them through Turner's eyes. Even when they are seen together, we never see them in the same space-time because we are always in the other's head that isn't talking. Sometimes the perspective will shift between two characters during a conversation they are having, so we can see the reaction each of them have to the conversation they are having. Elwood remains optimistic about change through nonviolence and diplomacy, whereas Turner is more cynical about society and thinks the worst of everyone. Elwood is bullied when he first arrives, but instead of the administrators caring about this, they choose to beat both the bully and Elwood with a belt in a small boiler room-like place, which the head of the school hints at during their orientation after arrival. The head of the school gives a false sense of hope that all of them will get out of here if they just behave and honor their points-based system. And once they reach the highest tier, they'll be able to leave. The reality is much darker than that, though, as the kids are never getting out of here until they age out or die from a variety of things like malpractice, outliving your usefulness, and any dark thing you can think of. The white kids of this place are separated from the other kids and are given much easier treatment, whereas the colored kids are basically slave laborers who get all of the hard jobs. This movie is very, very powerful with the story it wants to tell and the heartbreak it wants you to feel. It's telling a very realistic story that many minority people had to go through before, during, and even after the civil rights movement. The two relationships that keep Elwood going are the one he has with Turner and his relationship with his grandmother. She is played by Aunjanue Ellis-Taylor, I hope I pronounced that correctly, who is also the mother in Exhibiting Forgiveness, which I reviewed last year and thought it was one of the best films of the year. And she is a great actress, and is that again in Nickel Boys. The first compliment I have to give this movie is just how alive the camera is. Since it is told through a first-person perspective, the camera is always shifting to show us what our characters are looking at, whether people are surrounding them or the ground when they have their heads down. The best shots in the movie are when the characters are looking in mirrors or through glass and you see the reflection but no camera, obviously. I would love to know how they did this. Did they CGI the cameraman out, or is it a reverse shot technique that I'm missing? Either way, it's a nice job. I haven't seen a camera this alive since some early Scorsese work. The film uses transition cuts by filling them with archival footage from things like the Apollo 8 space mission, incarcerated black kids, and other things that add to the artful flair of white historical record that the film seems to be trying to convey. There is flash forwards shown throughout the film as well, and those are done from a third-person perspective, but just right behind the character's head instead of through their eyes. My favorite character in Nickel Boys is easily Turner. He may be pessimistic, but he is incredibly charming and very easy to like. I could tell very early on into their friendship that neither of these two belong in this place, and they are smart young men who deserve better than being slave laborers. While I like the story and the feelings this movie gives me, I have some serious issues with it as well that I just can't ignore. If you watch my review of Queer, my issues with both of these films is the same thing. They seem to value their gimmick more than they do their characters. My first small complaint is there are times when the camera doesn't behave the way a person would behave in their movements, such as the times we have a first-person hug. That's a small gripe I have because I know it's impossible to replicate true human movement with a camera this way. The problems for me arise when I feel that this picture is incredibly cold with its emotion, which is strange since we'd spend literally the whole movie in these characters' heads. I don't know if it's not being able to adopt to the style for dramatic effect for me, or if it's because emotion isn't being conveyed by the character we are in the head of. The camera feels alive with its movement, but it has no life with its emotion. This is hard for me to describe, but imagine you're playing a game like Half-Life. You see the emotions of the characters you're interacting with, but you're never shown emotion from the person you are being. In Half-Life's case, Gordon Freeman. I feel that way in Nickel Boys, where I see the pathos behind the eyes of the characters we are observing, but never the character we are embodying. Because of that emotional disconnect, a lot of the more emotional parts of this movie left me feeling cold. That might have been a conscious decision, but it just didn't work for me. I also got really aggravated during many portions of the first half, showing beautiful imagery or allowing me to get absorbed in the perspective of the character, only for the film to cut to a new scene just as I was getting into the mood. It felt to me like every time I was getting into the moment of a scene, the film got bored showing me that and quickly shifted to something else for no apparent reason. This is where I think that the gimmick of a first-person perspective takes precedent over the heart of our characters. It just seems like the camera is too in love with itself for some of the more important parts of the film. Specifically a scene where we're in a photo booth with two people, and it cuts before I feel the sweet impact that scene was trying to convey to me. It's a death by 1,000 cuts thing because it happens multiple times in this movie. Movies that love their style more than their substance always rub me the wrong way, and I love the effort here to try and do a new kind of filmmaking. I can't appreciate it as much if the camera seems to be more alive than the characters themselves are. I also think that the gimmick of Nickel Boys holds back some much needed pathos for me that it just can't convey based on the way they designed this story. The biggest example I can give is there was a boxing tournament about 2/3 of the way through, and one of the fighters has been ordered to throw the fight in the third round. The guy doesn't throw the fight and wins instead. He says to the guy who ordered him to lose that he didn't know it was the third round. He thought it was only the second round. This character is killed for not doing what they were ordered to do, but since the two characters we follow are nowhere near this incident when it happened, it didn't allow me to feel sad for this character, nor hate the corrupt system that surrounds this facility. I hate the place for what I know they are doing and treating these kids with such little value, but I needed to see more so I could feel more of that gut punch when the film wanted me to. But because it valued the gimmick more, I just felt detached from the weight it wanted me to feel. Despite my complaints with the gimmick outweighing the emotion, I can't deny the power this film has, though. It is shot unlike many films I've seen before. The performances are fantastic, and the feeling I had after the final scene can't be denied. I do recommend people see this movie, and I'm so glad that I saw it. Do I think it's one of the 10 best pictures of 2024? No, I don't, but that doesn't make it bad. It's just one that I really enjoyed watching, and I would encourage others to do so as well. It's a heartbreaking film, but it's also entertaining and so alive with its camera work. The film is languid, but that's not a criticism because I like languid movies as long as I feel something at the end. And I definitely felt what the film wanted me to feel in the final shots. So yeah, everyone check this movie out and just get absorbed in the shooting style and the two likable main characters, and you will see a film you haven't seen before telling a powerful story that deserves to be experienced by everyone. I give Nickel Boys 3 stars out of 4. I think critics probably overhyped this a little bit more than it deserved, but I still think it's a good movie I'm glad I saw and hope other people see it as well. Okay, so what did everyone think of Nickel Boys? Please let me know in the comments. As I said at the start of this video, I'm probably going to do a second review of Amelia Perez because everyone is just losing their mind over this movie, and I feel it deserves a fair second analysis from me. So please look forward to that soon. Here's links to some of my other videos. Follow me on social media if you like, and until next time, I am Ghost.